G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Al Garrett and I'm joined by Execute today.
Hey guys.
And as you've noted by our title, it's mercury poisoning. That means the Q&A for the mercury has come out, and the question is, has the mercury been poisoned by the answers in the Q&A, or does the mercury actually poison other ships? That's what we're going to discuss and answer as we go through the Q&A. And so to kick us off, Execute, why don't you start us?
So obviously we had some real concerns. Like I know myself personally, I had some red flags when we did the Mercury's Buyer's Guide, and we probably went over the Terrapin maybe a little bit too much. We got a few comments about that, and about how scanners worked and stuff like that. And some of the questions, particularly 1 and 9, as we go through it today, actually kind of showed that those concerns were quite valid. And not just in the Terrapin, but potentially make some other ships better than I thought they were going to be. But I'll let Algrid tell you about that.
So question 1 comes in, and the question was, what are the differences between scanning between ships like the Terrapin and the Mercury? Are they similar enough that the Mercury can be fitted with the Terrapin's role equally or better? And the answer was basically, ships that are dedicated for scanning will do the job better than ships that aren't. And the key in that answer was that we'll be able to pick up, rather than scanning unknown areas or picking up low signatures at distance like the Terrapin can. And that's the key takeaway for the ships with dedicated scanners. They can do the things at distance, very similar to what I think Hayes was indicating in that episode as well. They can do it at distance. They can zero the scan range in, whereas ships like the Mercury with just a general scanner will have to be up there close and personal to be able to do that.
We'll have to be
scanning
in the asteroid field where the Terrapin can be back outside of it, type of thing.
Yeah, and question 9 kind of answers the question, well, what types of things will the Mercury do? And can you give an example for legal PvP and PvE play? And the legal PvE play was being a mission to go and scan an area for information, such as an asteroid, for density and composition. Now, if you take that with question 1, the Mercury would be able to stand off from distance from that asteroid field and go, scan, gather the information. And it will be able to store that in its computer banks. The Mercury can do the same thing, but to get that same information, it's got to be right in that asteroid field. And with its multitude of computer banks, it will be able to gather a great deal of information, but to get that information, it has to be right there. And that's probably the big difference and the big takeaway.
I'd actually kind of bring the Herald into the mix there and kind of say, like, it's got bigger scanners physically in size to the Mercury. The Mercury pretty much just has like a garbage can lid that sits on top of it, and if that's so local, I actually think we'll find that the Herald can probably go a little bit further, at least, maybe not as long as far as the Terrapin, but further. And where they, in my book, I now see them as data collection ships. This more so as a data storage ship. And I can actually see a symbiosis between a Herald and this, where the Herald's collecting the data and this is storing or transporting at long distances, where the Herald is the almost like a worker bee and a queen bee in a weird way, working in tandem together.
And the other thing that came up in the Q&A was the question about the e-warfare suit. Does the Mercury have the ability to do e-warfare? And it was clearly stated no, the Mercury is not designed to have that role. It's designed to be cargo and info carrier, info runner, whereas the Herald and the Sentinel are ships with that ability. And that I actually saw as great news, because one of the red flags we had was that this stomped all over ships like the Herald and even the Terrapin. And those two questions, those two answers really say this is a ship that's got a set role and set goal, but does that really well while not stepping on or crushing totally the roles of those other ships. And that was one of the big red flags I think we felt was there. And I think that has actually been answered quite nicely in the Q&A. Do we know the mechanics of how exactly it'll work? Probably not, but the intention of how it will work is there, and I think that's what you'd really need to try and take on board, at least when you're looking at this ship.
Yeah, one of the other ones we had is not a concern, but a lot of people, other YouTubers, I've seen a few other videos, everyone seems to be comparing this ship, I don't know now, but when it first came out, with the Constellation. And now we've seen the Q&A and we've had time to think about how this ship's work and take in this new information. To me, it's more clear that this ship is more comparable to something like a Freelancer Max, possibly than a Constellation. And one of the big reasons for that, Algrid, I'll let you say.
Well, I was going to say that the main reason we did, and even we made the comparison to Constellation, was the fact that the Constellation was always billed as being that Millennium Falcon of Star Citizen, and straight away this ship was being sold in that role as well. And you had those twin turrets that kind of blazoned, that Constellation style gameplay with the Millennium Falcon, and the cargo capacity of the Mercury was the same as the Constellation as well. Pardon me.
Yeah.
So that comparison was not unjust.
But this new bit of information that came out of question number 5 on the Q&A is literally what has changed our mind on where we think this ship is comparing to, and we now see it more comparable to a Freelancer Max and and that's small jump points. And it also leads into a comment here by Misfit that was posted today on our Mercury Buyer's Guide, where he said, this nerfed the ship like crazy. They nerfed the ship like crazy. They insinuated that the ship was going to be almost as fast as a racer. Now we find out it's slower than a Cutlass. Nah, I'll be melding my CCU. Now, when you break this down, he's saying that they insinuated it was going to be fast as a racer. Back as far as when we were talking to the Buyer's Guide, Dyson brought up the fact that he can't see why they're saying this is a fast ship, because it's literally only 5 in speed faster than a Freelancer, and it was only slightly slower than a Cutlass. So it's not that fast, and I don't see where they get the racing terminology from, but I can see where they get the speed from, and this is where I think the small jump points also come into play.
Yeah, because it may not be as fast in that tactical aspect, but in terms of the strategic, it's fast. You've got a ship that can carry as much cargo as a Constellation, having that ability to go through small jump points. It is question 5 literally answered. While the jump point sizing and categorization is still being worked out, they expect the Mercury to fit through the same size jump points as a Freelancer, and the Freelancer was always said to be the largest ship that could go through small jump points. That means the Mercury can choose or can go through those smallest jump points.
It also now make this the new biggest ship that can go through small jump points too.
And it also, means it's got that cargo space, that massive amount of cargo, and that information that it can carry, being able to go through those fast loops as well. Add to that the fact that it's got that double quantum fuel tank, and that means this can go twice the distance in a single quantum jump without needing to stop off at a truck stop.
Less refueling, faster travel. It all piles up. So speed is relative to the perspective of what you're doing. And so when you take a few of these things into account, it's faster, not in speed, but how it's doing things.
On the star map, very fast. On the racetrack, not so. And I think that's the key takeaway there. You've got to think of it in terms of those regards. And when I think of it in that regard, I actually think, it is still very fast. And that also makes it still very much like the Millennium Falcon. The Millennium Falcon was never a really fast ship. When it was fighting, we always saw it being chased and overrun and having to take evasive action and go for asteroid fields and hide from the TIE fighters and even Star Destroyers.
But that's another comparison you bring up, actually, to believe it or not, when you're talking about being chased and that's the guns on these ships. They are very similar to the Freelancer. The main takeaway, though, is that 4 of the guns, they've both got 6 guns. The 4 guns on this ship, 4 of them are on the turrets. But then, just like an algorithm was saying, when they're being chased, they can shoot backwards. The Freelancer can't.
And the Freelancer's cannons, while they're on the side, and all the guns on the Freelancer can be fired by the pilot, besides 3 guns on the side, you're never really going to have difficulty getting all your guns firing on a target unless you're directly on.
To correct myself there a bit, because it's still got a little turret on the back of it, but the big guns are all going the wrong direction, so I'll rephrase what I was saying.
So in that sense, we tended to think that in terms of weaponry, they're very similar. In terms of the speed, they're very similar. You look at the engines, I actually think this ship is better in Atmo than a Freelancer.
Yeah, because of the VTOL. It's got extra 2 VTOL engines.
It's got 4 VTOL engines. The Freelancers have none. It's got the same number of.
I'm thinking of the old Freelancer back in the day. It had 2 because the engines rotated. But never mind. I've mixed myself up. The other thing I was going to say is the DIR, the computers on the DIR too. Did you want to mention those real quick?
Yeah, but DIR has 2 medium-sized computers, so the DIR could possibly fill in this role of being a data runnery type ship as well. Same situation, go up, getting close and personal, but the Mercury has 60% more computer capacity than the DIR, and so it will do that job far more efficiently.
Also comes down to the scanner type as well, which we don't know enough about on the DIR yet.
So when you're looking at the roles of a ship, the abilities of the ship, the crew of a ship, the size of the ship, and even the jump point size of that the ship can use, it is maybe not the evil twin of the Freelancer, but it's certainly the favorite adopted son.
The advanced Freelancer, let's call it that.
So yeah, it's certainly in that sense.
So, do we want to go over just like some little final thoughts?
So,
do you want me to go first?
Well,
or do you want to go first? I was going to say, so the main, these are some small little takeaways that we haven't mentioned. So, 2 roles in one ship. And a really weird way to look at it that kind of makes sense on a price point is the Herald and the Freelancer Max. If you actually put the Herald and the Max together price-wise, that's $205. That is, $225 as opposed to $220, which will be the kind of final price of this ship if you didn't buy it concept. So you're kind of got to ask yourself, would I rather 2 separate ships or 1 ship? And it's got exactly the same crew complement as a Freelancer Max. So it's an interesting takeaway. You just got to find out what you prefer.
The second one is airlock placement. So there's
little image
diagram
I made earlier.
Yeah, one we prepared earlier. You can see in the blue that's where the airlock is, and to me that just seemed like a really weird placement. It almost looked like they finished the ship and went, "Oh, where's the cargo area? Oh crap! Let's just tack it on the end of the."
Yeah, or it's an Inferno. Oh, maybe we should add some cargo as well, or whatever.
Yeah, so it just seemed weird.
Yeah,
and the fact that it's only got the one entrance as well.
It would be preferred there, but yeah, when as Aaron and I were talking about this, I said I always try and look at their side of things, and I'm like, maybe it's got something to do with the smuggling, so they can, because going through an airlock takes a little bit of time. So once they know they're coming, it buys them a little time for, to hide a couple of crew members into the smuggling compartments and stuff like that. And another part of that was Alga was talking about crew members. And if you're having 3 beds, you can kind of lie to them and have 5 people on the ship because there's 5 crew stations, and you can kind of
you can imagine the advocacy. Open up that airlock. We're just recompressing the cargo bay, officer. We'll be with you quite shortly. Hurry up. We're going as fast as we can, officer. Honest. Quick, hide that stuff. Honest, officer. Right, show us your crew manifest. We've only got 3. You sure there are 5 positions on the ship? Oh, we've only got 3 bunks, officer. Honest, we've only got 3 of us. So it does fit in with that.
John and Jack are crawling around the tubes trying to push those drugs wherever they can.
Yeah, so it does fit with that, either smuggling or even hiding people or having extra. If you do need to abandon ship, well, fastest draw gets the life pods, I suppose. But
yeah. So
That's
finally, I guess, is the price. You know, at $200 or $220, I think it is a good spot. It's not as good as a Constellation all round, but it's, you know, it's better than the Freelancer and the Freelancer Max and the Herald all in one. And I don't think it's at a bad spot. I think it's still different enough to be different, and I like that about it. The other thing that I think we probably haven't mentioned is there's only one entrance and exit to this ship. And I find that really interesting. And it's almost like they've done it to force the smuggling gameplay that we mentioned just a minute ago.
But then again, you also, if the authorities are trying to board your ship, you know exactly where they're coming. There's no someone sneaking in.
It forces them through that bloody airlock, you know. Like, so it's interesting. And every time you come to a negative about the ship, you find a positive reason for it. And it was like this today. We're just going back and forwards. So yeah.
So and we'll leave this one for you guys to answer and put your answers in our Discord. But has the Mercury been poisoned, or does it poison any other ships? We'd love to hear what you think. Like us if you like us on our YouTube. If you're new, subscribe. And I've been Al Garrett.
Yep, and I've been Execute. Last thing I'll add is if you're on Discord, want to join us for conversation, links below in the description. Come join us and talk to us anytime. Catch you guys next time.
We're out of here. Take care.